my whole goal right now is that there are a lot of people who are, and I don't want to use the word suffering, but they're not managing well when it comes to anxiety, when it comes to depression, when it comes to stress. So one of the things, we've worked together before. I mean, fantastic job you've done at Pine. No, really.
Those are some great days, man.
No, man, I'm telling you. I'm telling you, man. And those times we even had good high enrollment and all of those good things. And I'm not, I'm not here to pull down any organization or anything like that. I'm just grateful that you're able to move on. One of the things that that happened to me mentally is that even though I heard the call to move on to something else, it crushed my spirit. It took something from me, even though it was the right thing to do. It took me out of what I was used to, being comfortable. Now, I hate to say it, I'm talking to a man that deal with leadership. Those are negatives. I was comfortable. I knew what was going to happen next. I was on a year timeline, so I knew every year, every month in a year what was going to happen next. It all came, and then I hit rock bottom. Rock bottom mentally, because I was out of a system. I was out of something that I was used to. Even though I heard God call me out of that. You know what I'm saying?
That's big. So it's not about the voice that you heard, it's about the feelings that you have after making those moves.
There was even a time that I felt that I left, because I left the position, I left God. And it really did a toll on me mentally, but it built me back spiritually. But it took a while to make that turn. But I'm still in leadership, and there are those of us who are in leadership, not just the church. I don't want MSAD conversations to be just about the church, because there's a big world out there.
The church is a part of it.
Is a part of it. Yeah, is a part of it. And so, first of all, what got you into Pottinger? What is Pottinger and Associates? What is Pottinger and Associates first? Talk to me about that.
I say Pottinger and Associates is a leadership consulting company that helps leaders and their groups realize their best selves, and not just doing that, the gift of awareness, so that you can not just function on average, but you could function to your full capacity. Because most times you think about companies, leaders, you think about people, you really see people who are just enjoying their comfort zones, and then in the long run they feel a sense of regret because they would not have tapped into the better side of themselves or the uncomfortable sides of themselves. So from a leadership perspective, we help groups, we help companies, we help leaders, we help teams to navigate not just the bad things, but also to identify the opportunities of getting the best results possible, so that as a team you could experience growth not just for yourself, but for those who you work with. So at the end of the day, you have people who are fulfilled, people who are expanding, and people who have a greater sense of confidence in terms of executing and acting on their given skills and abilities without fear of doing so, and kind of removing the sense of boundaries and barriers that prevent them from doing what they were designed to do, and not just living in a cookie cutter mold, but traveling on a highway that is really taking them in the right direction. So that's the essence of Pottinger and Associates in a nutshell, elevator pitch format.
Listen, well, we didn't even get to the top floor yet, but that's important to me. And the reason why that piece is important to me is because you said things like better self. Many times we are, we like the cookie cutter. And let me explain, that's how I started off this conversation with you. And we didn't even have a conversation before this. We're walking right into this, it. But I enjoyed the cookie cutter because I knew where my boundaries were. You understand what I'm saying? I enjoy. I'm telling you,
that's deep right there.
I enjoyed being comfortable because there's no reason to be uncomfortable after a while, because I just grew into it. And 10 years into one thing, allowed me to be so comfortable that there was no growth. I'm talking about for me personally, there was no growth. Being a leader, and I'm talking about from families to corporations, because you've worked with corporations before. Don't think I don't follow you. With all of our brethren, by the way, from church to corporate, seeing you do your work. But there's sometimes those of us who work for the corporations and those of us who work for the McDonald's corporations, I don't care what it is, There's sometimes when our mental capabilities are not where they're supposed to be. Talk to me about when you talk to these Fortune 500 leaders, these big company leaders that looks like they hit rock bottom, not just from the company's sake, but also in their own lives. What do you recommend for them? Wow. What do you recommend for those who are listening? My field is pastoral, but it can go right across the board. When we hit that brick wall, I mean, we think we can lead. I'm throwing a whole lot at you at one time, but talk to me about those of us who are in leadership, not just pastoral, leadership period, when we hit that brick wall, why we hit the brick wall, and how can we get out of that?
Yeah, you know what? I want to jump back to when you made mention of the cookie cutter.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think one of the good things about cookie cutting is that you're being cut in the same position, the same space. And because you're cut in the same space, over a period of time, that same space get accustomed to the cutting that is taking place. Now, when changes happen, when you make new decisions and new people, a new movement, a new environment, then the cutting is taking place in a new space. In a new space means that it's almost like you're cutting new, fresh flesh. Yes. And cutting new, fresh flesh means that it brings about new pain.
Oh my goodness.
It means that it causes a new accommodation, new adjustment. And with those new things, you have no other choice but screaming if it's difficult. And screaming is difficult comes across in several different ways. So as a leader working in a space, especially in a changing community, changing world,
yeah.
It means that in an effort to stay competitive, in an effort to stay relevant and to be dynamic, and at the same time feeding and surviving and supporting those who you have around you, it means that you're going to feel some amount of pressure. Yeah. The thing about pressure is that pressure serves to be disturbing or disrupting. Anything that is disturbing or disrupting or disruptive, it creates some amount of change in terms of our responses. Now, our responses in that may mean that I no longer have the capacity to lead as effective as I would have when everything was normal. Now you ask yourself the question, who's impacted by this? So the fact that you're serving in a leadership capacity, it means then that whoever you're serving and whoever you're leading, they will be feeling the pinch or the brunt of your lack of capacity based on the experiences that you're having. Your lack of capacity in that psychological moment doesn't mean that you are not equipped to lead, but it may mean that in that space you're no longer fit to lead. And not being fit to lead doesn't mean that you should be fired, but if you're not fit, it means that you need support. You need crutches, you need all the different things. And if your shoes is dirty, you polish it. And if your body has an odor, you perfume it. Right. So if you're in that space as a leader, then you need help, because every minute that you go without getting the support that you need is the fact that you're putting others through the very same pain or even more, because they're feeling the brunt of everything. It's almost like an alcoholic who kicks the cat because he really wants to kick his wife. Right. You get what I'm saying? But he's going to get that out.
In some way or another.
Either on the bottle, on the cat, or something, but he's going to get it out. So as leaders, when you go through those changes or you go through those pressures because you're always expected to produce results, it means that you need help, because if you don't secure help, then others around you will need more help. Because what happens in a leadership capacity, what makes it more dangerous is that you can lead a thought, an idea, and you can chart a path, but those who are beneath you, they have to deliver on your dysfunctional state of being.
That's right.
And that now creates greater sense of dysfunctionality, and in the long run end up impacting results. So my word is that when you feel the pinch, when you feel the burn, when you feel a new cut in a new place, be reminded that you're going to respond differently, because the dynamics that you're experiencing or you're comfortable with has just changed. And because it has shifted, it means that everything for everybody else will be shifting. And if they don't have the grounding to stand on, you are now creating a toxic environment just because you were afraid of accepting that you felt a pinch and that you need crutches.
So that means if I don't get help, I think that's our scary word there. You know, when we talk about get help, it automatically means that there's something punitive. There's something wrong when we say that we need help. But a leader, you're telling me then that a leader who's not receiving help can really bring down the whole organization.
It's not can. It's just a matter of time.
It's a matter of time.
It's not can. It's just a matter of time. It goes to simple put. You may have a young assistant in your office,
Right.
and just because of what you're going, and you understand that that person doesn't have the clout or the latitude to punish you for what you're doing. Your attitude to that person may have that person change their mind about their career because they once looked at you as a role model.
And can't see that
I can't see that anymore. And just because of your lack of judgment, because of the pain and the pressure, the depression or the stress that you're going through as a leader, you just broke an entire conduit that was providing a pathway for a new leader just because you were unwilling to secure help because of what you understood it to be based on your subculture.
Can you say then, not just a new leader, but another generation?
Not an entire generation could change because of that. And I've seen it. I've heard persons, I've been in conferences and hear people, they get up and they speak so well. And I'm like, so what your role? And they came off in a shy way about what they're capable of doing. And then I said, I'd like to talk to you afterwards. And after hearing their experience, Pat, 90% of the time, it was as a result of a bad experience with a leader who needed help. Remember, people don't leave organizations, they leave leaders.
No, man, you didn't just say that. You didn't just say that.
People don't leave organizations, they leave leaders.
They leave leaders.
They leave leaders. So if they can't feel that empathy, that support, that rigor from you, just because you are unwilling to secure the support because you're going through a pinch and because you need healing and you need support, you need mental health support, and you fail to do that, just remember that you're taking down maybe an entire generation
My
with you
goodness.
because of your unwillingness to seek the support that you need.
My goodness. That's deep. I think the hardest thing to do is to ask for help. I think that's the hardest thing. I mean, everybody goes through their own thing, their own stress, their own anxieties. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with stress. Stress helps you. There's good stress. There's good anxieties.
Definitely.
There's no good depression.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can't.
No good depression, no good anxiety.
There's good. There's so the stress piece and the anxious pieces. We always say that depression is something that's unresolved from the past. While anxiety is something that no trust or unprepared for the future.
I agree with that.
All right. So when I look at leadership, matter of fact, you have done this before. You have picked up. I'm not going to say it's comfortable. I'm not saying we were in the same spot, but there was an upward mobility in the last education system that you were in. And I'm gonna tell you, I was upset with you. We talked. I was upset with you. I said, man, you must be losing your mind. I mean, because there was a lot of good things that were happening. My dad always says, leave the baseball field after you hit the
home run. Don't leave on the bench, man. Leave while you're still starting.
My dad always says that. So, I mean, and there was a selfish part of me too, because there was a team thing that we had. Not I thought we had.
We had
a team thing that we had, even through helping out students, and even the way we disciplined them was spiritual.
Definitely.
Was spiritual.
Definitely.
And there were times when we had to say that, and I'm taking the micro out of what you just said. There were times when we had to say, hey, we need to find help for this student instead of having that student continue going on in what they're going in. And they've turned out well.
Definitely.
They turned out well.
And they're grateful for that. It was sour immediately, but it's now sweet in the mouth.
And it was sour for us too.
Yeah, it was difficult.
There were times we walked out of there weeping.
Worrying about our decisions.
Man, did we do the right thing? Did we say the right thing? But let's go back to this, because I think this is important. When you're in the leadership field, when you are dealing with, these high level corporate people, are leaders, are you able to talk to them and say, hey, get help? Help is not only what I'm talking about, MSAD, managing stress, anxiety, and depression. I'm not just talking about that, because there's help for other things. There's help when you don't lead correctly. There's help when you, like for me, I'm at a situation right now where I let a whole year pass in my congregation because I didn't want to make any changes right now, but now it's time to make the changes. But now I'm afraid.
Definitely.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's why? Because I'm anxious it's not going to turn out right. depressed because I've been here before and it didn't work out right.
Old pain.
Yeah. Oh, but the cuts are still there.
Because the scars are still there.
The scars are still there. But and take it out of church for right now, because how do you say to that leader it's okay to change while moving?
Wow. You know, Pat, I think that's a great question, because it's almost like old saying goes, you got to ride and whistle, in terms of how do you enjoy
This
the rain,
guy.
instead
Ride
of
and
staying
whistle.
away from it and getting it done. It's always going to be challenging in terms of doing the tough things. And one thing that I show leaders, that sometimes you walk into rooms with leaders and their groups and everything seems fine because people are dressed in their pinstripes and people are looking quite fine.
Yes.
But within 30 minutes of a session, you recognize the dysfunctionality. And the dysfunctionality, sometimes you see it came about as a result of people not wanting to be uncomfortable. So the quest to maintain the status quo, place the people in the group and the leader in more stress, because what happens, it keep repeating itself. So I'm always like, what kind of team do you want to have, or who do you want to become? Do you want to become that ball of stress that is laden with all kind of sicknesses and stuff just because you didn't make the right decisions? Or are you prepared to have the tough conversations with yourself and with your team, as opposed to dealing with a greater sense of dysfunctionality?
Is it with yourself first, or is it with the team?
You got to be with yourself first, because the thing about, you can't give people more than what you have. And this thing about team lead, that's true. Team will take you further than where you can go yourself, because just the power of the multiplication does that.
I've heard you I've heard you talk about that before.
But in the same sense is that when you stand before a team, people need to see that you are willing to do the tough things and you're willing to confront your own demons. And it's not to say that you're going to share all your demons with them, but you got to take care of the home base. You see, if the home base is not together, then everything that the home base touches will be infected. It's just what it is. Once you move, then your residue is on everybody.
My gosh.
Because you have failed to deal with the one thing that you need to cure within yourself. So what happens is that as a leader, you end up displacing your stress, your problems on other members of the team instead of dealing with it. And if you have good teams, you may have people in the team who may confront you and say, Pat, you need to get yourself checked.
Yeah, right.
Because I've seen your better days.
Right.
And this is way beyond what I
Right.
know you to be.
Yeah.
So I think as leaders, you have to.
We've been there before.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have been there before. There are times when I remember we're looking at this kid and how we're gonna help rehab this kid, and people don't like the word rehab, but the rehab is there. And I remember sometimes sometimes we make the travel back and forth. You live up there, I make the travel back and forth. Pat, you good? Sometimes just Pat, you good? You
gotta check in. You gotta check in. You gotta, because if you don't check, look, when it comes on to, and I'm gonna put the word out there. Some people don't like it. Mental health.
Yeah.
And having the latitude to make good decisions,
Yes.
and to live a good life.
Yes.
It's almost like, if you don't have that sense of mental security and have all the currency needed to manage yourself, it's almost like putting a vehicle out there without a driver, and the vehicle itself is not programmed. It means then that the vehicle is going to go wherever the gravitational force pushes it.
Sure.
And not because the gravitational force pushes or pulls it in a certain direction means that that's the right space. But the bad thing about that, you will have to live with the outcome of wherever that vehicle ends up, as opposed to you making the decision to end up in a place where you need to be to get the support that you need, so you can now steer the vehicle in the right path. It's like taking a game off and getting the hamstring healed, nursed, instead of playing on a hurt hamstring and then being out for the rest of your career.
That's right. Why am I talking to you? Why am I talking to you?
And that's it. So many times we miss that,
Yeah.
because we can't afford to be viewed as no longer relevant. The quest for relevance forces us to make decisions that imprison and cripple us for a lifetime.
Man, that could take us somewhere else, because the truth is that I've seen a lot of leaders, young and old, by the way, who are no longer relevant.
They're relegated.
Ooh.
It's almost like a tin of sardines, or third for those who don't eat whatever, or corned beef, we say bully beef, whereby it has a date on it, should not be opened after this date. There are a number of leaders who are walking around with expiration dates to their back.
Listen
they
to me,
can no
bro.
longer be cataloged. You can't find them in library.
Listen
They're
to
not
me.
even.
Bro.
You can't find them if you research them.
That's deep right there, because relevance means something. And let me explain what I mean by that. This whole thing, I don't know when it's going to start, when it's going to end. I started in 2012. Fordham is the one that said, "Hey, youth ministry is your thing." But remember, I also had a master's in youth ministries before that. You understand what I'm saying? So I wasn't ready then, but God had the time to say, "Okay, now it's time." Right?
Let's tap into it.
And the truth is this: I'm not going to put any blame out there. God spoke to me before. Abraham, the Abraham thing says time to go. I have some other things that I need you to do. And I didn't follow him. Let me tell you how I know it's true. Because on Facebook you have stories. And sometimes the stories pop up later on.
Definitely.
And when I look at the stories later on, I knew
Rude awakening. Rude awakening.
I knew why I did it. Because you don't want to talk about your organization. I love my church. And when I say my church, I'm talking about holistically. I love my church. So it's not about that. It's about where God wants you to be, and you don't want to break out
of that comfort space.
Yeah, I hate to use your cookie cutter words again, but that's what it is, right? And you get to a place where God wants you elsewhere, but He didn't tell you. He didn't tell you what it is. He just says it's time to go from one place to the other. That is the hard part. And the reason why it's the hard part is because even though I'm going to always love youth, you feel there was I felt there was a part of me that was ripped out, right? And remember, I didn't get kicked out. I left.
You stepped out.
There's a difference, right? There's a difference between getting edged out and you just deciding to leave, right? So you got to go through, did I make the right move? You got to go through, I'm talking about mentally. Lord, did I walk away from, was that your voice? Hold on. Was that your voice? And then, here's the other part of it. Believe me, there's a joy in seeing the work continue. There's the other side that says, hold on a second, you mean I left and the work is still continuing? You mean I left these big organizations and it's still continuing? And it's not a bad thing. God kind of put me in places that I'm in charge here. And even though you're in the corporate field, there's a higher being. Some people don't believe in what we call God, but to them it's the higher source, or there's a higher being that's there, that's controlling everything, the seasons, what's happening. So my thing was moving from one platform to another platform, not a smaller platform. Listen to me when I tell you, Coach, I'm not saying I went from a large platform to a small platform. I went to a different platform. It actually did something mentally to me, where I had to now find myself in a place where I have to listen, find help, and listen to the next move, what the next move is. I have to be uncomfortable with the next move. Even calling you and asking you to do this, you got things to do. Daughter is here.
Well, we got to show up. We have to show up.
I understand that.
We got to show up.
I understand that, but you could have charged me. I'm not playing. I'm not playing.
Yeah. You're right.
You could charge. I mean, I just got off the ship. I said, I'm in Orlando. Let me get with Jaymie real quick and get. Get some real gems from him real quick. Iron sharpens iron. I don't want to hear that anymore. I always heard you with another term, like a term that says something like,
one hand washes the other.
No, but it's true though, because Jaymie, this is the truth. I had to put away everything youth ministries. I had to come off of certain things, youth ministries. I had to be in a blank section while praying for my successor, because I pray for him. I pray for, and I really do. I'm not playing this game. You know how people, this guy took my spot, and you feel, I don't. I pray for him. I pray for his wife, because I know how
you've been through it.
I've been through it, so I know what that's like, right? So I'm at this point where I have to now start watching you. I watch Myron. But and I'm saying that because of those are people who follow me right now. But I also had to watch some of these other heads out here that's not professing Christianity. They're using mental health to say it's okay if you feel this way, or it's okay you feel that way, but you can get back up and start moving again. Imagine all the pastors who move from one church to the other.
What they go through.
What their families go through. What about these people that you do? I'm just calling out Piggly Wiggly, or what's the grocery store here, the big one, Kroger's, or one of these places. And these corporate people move from one place to the other.
They go through, when you think about those groups, those people go through the very same thing. But one of the things that happened that you recognize, Pat, whether it's in corporate America, whether it's in the church, whatever it is, I think that we were cultured to come off as tough. We're a culture to come off as if we can do things seamlessly, you know. But you think about it, a father who just made that move, or a wife just made that move, and that kid is in the room crying because they missed their friends, or daddy just lost his job, or daddy's taking a bigger job, or mommy's taking a bigger job, or whatever it is. You recognize that they go through that very same, the pains of transition. They go through that place whereby they question their moves. And not only do they question their moves, but if they don't have the right tools, they take things that speed up the process. And we know what those things are. Sex, drugs, you name alcohol, you name. They take those things because they can't afford to come off as weak. It's almost like I'm doing fine. But it's obvious when you watch their teams, because everything affects the dynamics of those who you interact and engage with.
It's true.
And if you think I'm lying, if you're married, you could ask your wife or your husband, you could say, what was our intimate connection like after I made that move? And if they're honest, and if they shake the devil and they speak the truth, they'll let you know that, honey, this is the impression that I've gotten, because it comes out in who we are in our most vulnerable places, and the people who we care about the most. And then what happens? But here what happened. If that's what happened to the people who we care about the most, what happened to the ones that we care about the least?
And we're hurting them, and we're hurting the organization.
Yeah. So the results and everything is impacted. So when you share with leaders, like, that's why I like what you're doing, because you're touching a topic, or you're venturing into a space where people know that it exists, but they talk about it in a hush-hush way. And there are many people who are right now quietly taking notes and wondering, checking to see, did I pass those tests, what Pat is making mention of? And I bet you that 9 out of every 10 persons who are listening at this point, they are either going through it, just gone through it, or they're about to enter into it. So it's not a if, it's when and how. But the sad part about it is that if and when you fail to secure the support that you need, when you're broken as a leader, there's some leaders who have never ever made that U-turn, because they leave so many bodies behind, whereby those who manage them just say that, guess what, you are now at your destination and you need to find a new space, and you're now put into a pastor even though you still have the skill set, but because of how you dealt with your own pain, or you dealt with your own loss, you dealt with your own grief, or you dealt with your own insecurities that you have. You know, what happened is that it puts you in a place now whereby you have just been relegated. You have just, it's almost like you're blocked from what you enjoy doing. What that does to you, it puts you in a worse off space, because the thing that you love, you're now told that you can no longer do it. And you go around and you see that in many spaces. So to talk about this conversation and to share with leaders and people in spaces that you go through pain, you feel pain, you hurt others around you, and without help you keep on doing the same thing, and the only way that you can deal with that is by acknowledging it and taking the right step before you start damaging others.
All right, I know that we're talking about people now, but you are good for organizations. No, you're good for organizations. I mean, really, we're talking about people. Have you worked with any organizations that you had to use the same, just as you use for people, you had to develop the same concepts for them to be able to, for the companies to make a turnaround, for their morale booster? to turn around?
Yo, look, Pat, I was overseas and I can't share the organization that I was with because
right.
I know that once people see your faces, they could tap back and see where
Sure,
we were.
sure,
And,
right.
and we were having a good conversation in the room, and I mean that I had maybe like 30 something different middle-level managers, and each of them had like 2 or 3 members of their team or more in the room, and the conversation was going great, Pat. I mean, everybody sharing. Look, for the first time in a session, I felt like, wow, I didn't know that I could get that many persons to be so engaged. They were pumped up, Pat. We were going through the assignment, and I felt good. Just got off the plane, and I made it to the organization, and I was having a good. I'm like, if this is what's going to be like, Pat, this is going to be. But I'm feeling sweet. And then, Pat, a lady walked in the room. When the lady walked in the room, it's almost like she had a vacuum and she sucked every energy out of the room. People's mouths were now shut. People popped out their cell phones. People stopped responding. The session, it almost was like I was at a funeral in less than 30 seconds. Jeez. When I was finished, I went to the executive director and said, guess I had an experience that was rather interesting. What's happening here? I had 30 minutes worth of good session, and the next 20 minutes was the living HELL. And she said, Jaymie, who walked in the room? And she said, I could guess and tell you who did. And she shared the name. I said, yes, that person. It said, that person has been going through so much, and that person has become like a poison to the organization. And we're having people leaving the organization left, right, and center because of that person. But they were like, but the person is so good, we can't get rid of them. So my response was this: either you're going to get that person help, or you're going to fire that person, because in a matter of time, you're going to lose this organization. You know, we differed in opinions. The person who brought me there, and they were writing the check, so I said my piece and then moved on because I wanted my ice cream afterwards.
Why not?
So after I said that, it was 4 months after.
And you don't feel guilty?
No.
No, listen, I want you to continue where you at, because don't lose that 4 months after. Don't feel guilty for knowing your worth.
No, you have to. You have to, because if you embrace, let me share this though.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, we mix the word discomfort with guilt. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Some of the greatest things that we experience in life come through pain.
It's true.
Watching my wife giving birth to her kids was a painful experience. But when that bad boy popped out and I looked the look on her face, I'm like, good God Almighty.
That's right.
That's what the pain. So I'm saying, so discomfort
It's okay.
It's okay.
Right.
And going through it is one thing, but sometimes we mix those two things together, and we miss out on something that should just be for discomfort. So I said, so 4 months after, I got a call from the director, and she said to me that, Jaymie, we have decided to, we got rid of that person. And Jaymie, when we got rid of that person, we lost maybe 3 or 4 top persons, but all the others came to us and said, happy riddance for that person. Everything changed. They said to me that it was almost like, it was like spring in the organization. New flowers were coming up just because of that move. And then I said to them, this was a tough conversation. I said, but you owe that person an apology. And they said, why do you say that? I said, because you allowed that person to be going through all their pain, and you never ever as a leader held them accountable and provided them with the support so that they could lead in their best space. So what that person became is as a result of what you failed to become. And when I said that, she was like, they said to me, Jaymie, you know what? That's hard to swallow.
You're not getting another check.
But guess what happened? You know, I made sure that the check was already deposited. So they say, you know what? You're right. We should have checked this 2 years ago. And that's what happened. So we walk around people who are like balloons just on the edge of being popped. And it means that everybody's on eggshells, and the results that you get are way diminished because of that. Because people don't get the help that they need as leaders. And not getting that help puts other people in the same space of needing help.
You know, let me tell you something, man. I remember when you first began, it wasn't Pottinger and Associates yet. I said, no, man, this guy is only good. Well, you want me to lie to you?
You know, go feed the truth and shake the devil, man.
This guy will never, he's only good for recruiting. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to go right wing on it. I'm saying this, we have a way of, I have a way of putting people in my own way. And I remember saying, don't worry about it, be back. You know, his tongue is not as sharp as some of them other guys out there. He'll be back. Let me tell you something. I'm so proud of you.
God be praised, man.
You hear me? I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you when I see what's going on. I follow you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't grudge you.
We follow. That's
But
I
follow
like
you.
it, man.
No, man, I do. I follow you. I take my gems out. I retweet them for me because here's what I see. This is not about bivocational. I think we miss that. There's a lot of things, like you left from the first organization, you're over here at this organization, and what you were doing there, you're doing even greater here. But not only that, God is even blessing you to be able to help others, other corporations, right? So what ends up happening with some of us is we become haters because we can't understand how you can hold down a family, hold down a school, VP at a school, and still be able to go into the corporate world to show them order through the God in you.
That's it. That's it.
You don't have to mention God all the time. You don't have to mention Jesus Christ all the time. I'm not saying, but to bring order, God is a God of order, and you are bringing to organizations order. You know, that's gospel.
That's the beauty of God, man. That's the beauty of God. And you know, it comes back to, as you mentioned, Pat, is that for every move that you make in life, and I'm talking to leaders, and when I say leaders, you know, leaders for me, Pat, is not just positional, but leadership is leading up, is leading down, is leading across, and most important, leading yourself, is that there's always that element of self-doubt. And self-doubt may be as a result of some failures that you've experienced. It may be as a result of what others have shared. It may be just because of that imposter syndrome or the past experience that you've had.
Syndrome. That's terrible.
But the thing about it is that you have to ask yourself this question, you know, if there was nothing or no consequences for you doing what you think you were created to do, would you still do it? And if the answer is yes, then it means that you should do it. Because, you know, when you look at it, the reason why we get to certain spaces is because of our fear for failure. That's it. Or fear for being viewed a certain way. But then when you think about it, the very same naysayers that you have are the same people who are going to end up becoming your cheerleaders when you persevere. Because it's in us. Pat, it's in us as human beings. So, you know, there was a time, Pat, when I would be bothered when persons are bothered by what I'm doing. But then I recognize that I am bothered when people are doing what they should do. Because what happens is that when they change from what they used to do, it robs me from getting what I used to get. You know what I'm saying? So because of that, I'm like, I'm not mad. You know, I say, you know, you're right. And if I were in your position, I'd say to people that I feel the very same way, because that's how we are as human beings. But when you understand that your picture of life is bigger than the one that you have inherited, then you'll be on a pace of painting the new one.
Oh yeah.
And painting the new one.
Oh yes.
Painting the new one is one that nobody has ever seen yet. But guess what? The
yes.
very same people who may say that you should not have that paintbrush are the very ones who would purchase every pixel of that picture that you just painted.
Come on, bro.
So it comes with, and it comes back to having the right circle. It comes back to having the right people who, when you're at your lowest point, they can remind you that it's okay to get help. When you're at your highest self-doubting point, they can let you know that it's okay to self-doubt, but it's not okay for you to stick with the negative that you've told yourself. And that circle is the circle that will determine your trajectory in life. Outside, you know, I'm not, because I'm a firm believer. I love God. He's everything to me.
Sure.
But God has given us the capacity to pull people in, to give us that circle that can keep us grounded, and to also let us know that when we're going cuckoo and that we need to see something or see somebody who can guide us along that path.
Right.
We need that.
You're right.
We need that.
You're right. Let me ask you this. Sun is setting. I happen to love Orlando.
Birds and the skies are blue, the trees, everything, the oak trees, everything is nice, man.
I just came through Tampa, Hurricane Helene, and after the storm. Place is just beautiful.
It's back together.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are other places
Yeah,
that has been devastated, and we're sorry to hear about that. But I want to ask you this: if someone wanted to contact you, say, listen, we're going through a drought. You can have good sales and going through a drought.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, the morale is low. We don't even know our strategic points anymore. You know, we're just going day after day after day. How would how would people be able to get in contact with you, Pottinger and Associates, to be able to say, listen, I need that. How can they get you? And what just tidbit? What would you have to offer?
So when you think about teams, for example, let's start off how they reach us. So if you do LinkedIn, then you could look for Jaymie Pottinger. That's JaymiePottinger at LinkedIn. So that's my name. Facebook, the same thing, Jaymie Pottinger. Instagram, on the gram, same Jaymie Pottinger.
Yes, sir.
Or you could check Pottingers and Associates Consulting. But sometimes people like Jaymie, I can't spell that. So you could just look for JaymiePottinger.com too, which is JaymiePottinger.com. So you could check that out, Pottingers and Associates Consulting. Or you could just call on the website. And then when it comes on the strategic, because we work with a few companies and organizations, non-profits and churches and stuff. If you have an organization that is looking for a strategic plan so you can move forward, we work with groups in terms of going through your entire team. We provide assessment for your team so you could know the dynamics of your team, the culture of your team, the gaps of your team, so that you can put that team in a place whereby they can win. Because nothing is wrong with being different, but everything is wrong when the difference that's in your team is not embraced and used to create a difference. So when people say, I have a dysfunctional team, let's take out the dis and look at the functionalities in the team, and then we can work at the dis, on the dis. And if you do that through the disc or through the predictive index, it gets a chance to see the team, the members, their makeup, the culture, the dynamics, and what you can do. And then, remember that you can set goals and you could set the path that you're heading on. Because, Pat, many teams are on the right highway path. They're in the right building path. They have the right leaders, Pat. They have the right members, but they're heading in the wrong direction.
Mercy.
It's almost like, I heard something recently like this bird was heading in a direction, but the bird was on the back of an elephant. So they were walking in that direction, but the elephant was walking next direction. So even though the bird was heading in the wrong direction, the path that they were on was already heading in another direction. So we help teams where that is concerned. And we do the consulting with leaders, and we do different cohorts. And a number of companies are reaching out for the workshop that we do with Face of Leadership with my recently published book. We go through the 8 different elements of leading and being strong as a team. So all those pieces, we use a DISC, predictive index, and we help with the sales training if you have that too. And as a consulting leadership organization, you name the issues that you may have with people, culture, being agile, having a sense of awareness. We are equipped with with our members or different associates to work with your team to get you in a space whereby you could see a way forward and you could be strategic about it. So.
And you could also say that you heard on MSAT and get 10% off.
Yeah, we'll do some. We're gonna do something for that. Yeah, definitely.
This guy's about 50,000.
We'll work something.
Now listen,
out.
I caught you. I put the mic on you just out here. You do your thing on Sundays. You're definitely a family man. We see that all the time. And I just want to thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure and privilege.
Thank you for your time, man. I just needed to get to a friend.
Yeah.
And the check's not in the mail.
No, that's all right.
The
Don't worry
check's
about
not
it,
in the
man.
mail.
That check has been paid already, man. I can't. If I tell you guys the amount of stuff that he has done for me when we were back in the north, I won't share the location because people will track us. You get what I'm saying? At the tip of a coin, at the whim of a hat, he'll be in doing what he does and creating that impact and connecting with the group that we worked with back then.
Yeah.
And after those conversations, it was almost like melting the sugar, and it was easy for you to make that cake because he did his stuff. So I'm forever grateful for that. And your value for people, Pat, your value and love for people. I think that signature piece of you is something that is intoxicating for every group. And my word to you, as you venture in this direction, is keep doing that and that authentic side, because people want authentic folks. I think Myron Edmonds said something, and I'm paraphrasing Myron, so please don't sue me or anything for this. But he says something to the essence that you cannot receive the help that you need in your fake state. So if I'm not real about me, then you're gonna give me what is unreal for me.
Sure.
You get me? So thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward for more opportunities where we could break this down Sesame Street style. Thank you.
We sure will. Listen, thanks everybody for hanging out with us for a little while here, and share this with someone. Even if you're not going through something, somebody else may be going through something. I like how you said that before. If it's either it happened before, or it's happening now to you, or it will happen.
Definitely,
But
definitely.
either way it goes, get help. Whether it's corporate, whether it's your own family, whatever it might be, get help. Because this life is worth living.
It's worth it, man.
I'm
It's
telling you,
worth it.
it's worth living. It's worth living.
It is.
All right, everybody. I'm sad. We're, I don't know. I'm not even sure if I had a statement after that.
Please note that the content of this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional regarding any medical concerns or conditions. The views and opinions expressed by our guests and hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of MSAD or Critical Mental Health. Patrick Graham is of the Christian faith and an ordained minister in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Thank you for listening.